Hi, my name is Jodi Guerra, and I'm with Excelsior Classes. I want to welcome you to our first installment of Book Banter, a video blog in which we're going to provide you with some recommendations for what to read next in an effort to help you increase your deep thinking and deep reading. I recently read a statistic that said almost 27% of adults in America don't read anything at all other than maybe on the internet or something like that, or on their smartphone. They don't read books. And I think that's a travesty, and it's also a tragedy. Books are ways that novels and nonfiction, these are things that keep us connected as people and help us to think through issues of today. It connects us with people of the past, people of different cultures. So I'm all about reading. And for this first installment of Book Banter, what I wanted to think about or to offer is something a little bit unusual, and it's a bit of a challenge, and that is I'm going to make recommendations for really long books. We're talking, brick-worthy books, books that you can use as a doorstop when you're finished reading them. Now, some of you may be thinking, I don't have time to read something that long. I think that you do, and we're going to give you some tools for how to break it down. Perhaps you'll be so engaged in these titles that you won't even mind reading it. So let's get started, shall we? I want to talk a little bit about some nonfiction books first off the bat. And by long books, what I'm really talking about is something anywhere between the 600 pages and up, 600 to about 1,000 pages of length in text, not counting the notes and the index. Okay, so these really are long books. And the first one that I want to recommend to you would be this one by Simon Schama, and it's called Citizens. It's a chronicle of the French Revolution. Now, this particular book was written back in the late 1980s. I want to say 1989. And it is a fascinating account of the French Revolution. We get everything from the aristocrats down to the paupers, the guillotine. I mean, this is exciting stuff, kiddos and parents. This is the kind of book that I think you would be enthralled by, with the level of detail and just the intricacies. And the French Revolution really is something that I think many of us can relate to, right? Many of us have read maybe A Tale of Two Cities. It's just something that's so interesting. And Simon Schama does a great job of highlighting a lot of the intricate details that make the story fascinating. I read this when it first came out, and it's one that I've turned to again and again. It really is just a phenomenal book. But let's just say no thank you, so not interested in the French Revolution. Okay, well, how about another great book, which I just think is fascinating, and of course I just love this time period, but this one is Six Wives, the Queens of Henry VIII. This one's by David Starkey. You may have seen episodes of this. It was dramatized in a documentary. I think they did air it on PBS. You may have seen it on one of the cable channels as well. But talk about intrigue, right? I mean, we've got the Six Wives, everything from Catherine of Aragon all the way down to the last one, Catherine Parr. All sorts of court intrigue. If you've ever been really interested in the Tower of London and the politics of Henry VIII and just what transpired there and what makes King Henry so compelling a figure, this is a great book. I think that you would enjoy it. But let's just say, no, thank you. How about something a little more close to home? All right, I got something for you. And this is another good one. Written by Doris Kearns Goodwin. This is A Team of Rivals. You notice that I had to go to the library and check a lot of these out because I end up loaning my books out and I don't remember how to get them back. But Team of Rivals, you'll notice that the subtitle is The Political Genius of Abraham Lincoln. Now, interestingly, Doris Kearns Goodwin, and I just love her, Doris Kearns Goodwin was a staffer for Lyndon Baines Johnson, and she has written a really great biography of him as well, and several other great works, some on FDR and his wife Eleanor Roosevelt. But this particular book, if you happen to see the Steven Spielberg movie on Lincoln, I think it is just simply titled Lincoln, this book was the foundation for that movie. And what she does so well in this book is really look at Lincoln's politics and how he accomplishes things, which is really fascinating. It's a long work, but again, it is just so very interesting. Now, the last one that I'm going to tell you about in terms of nonfiction works is this one here. And boy, this is a ragged copy. I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed a little bit to show this to you, but you'll see that it's been well read in my family. This is Truman, and it's written by, my most favorite of authors, nonfiction authors, David McCullough. I just love him. I so want to meet him. I know I'm being a fangirl right now, but you can see that this particular cover is just totally demolished. This is one that's about 960 or so pages. And guys, I will tell you, this is the part where I'm going to tell you how you can accomplish reading something of this length. The way that you do this is the way that you read anything or tackle anything that's really huge. And that is by reading just about 15 to 20 pages a day. If you can read 15 to 20 pages a day, you will get through a work like this in no time. And so parents, if you're thinking there's no way that I can get my child to read this, you can. And by just taking little bits, little parcels of the book and breaking it down that way, it's a great way to do it. Now, guys, this is a book that every student of mine that's of reading capable age at this point, I have an 8-year-old, he hasn't gotten there yet, but everyone else has read this book in my home, Truman. And of course I had all of the same, I'm not reading that. I'm like, oh, you're reading it. And you know what? Everyone loved it. And in my classes, when I have taught high school level English classes, especially for American literature, Intro to Lit, this is a book that I'm often recommending for one of the projects. I probably had about 40 students read this book. Everyone has said it was a great book. No one regretted reading it. And so it's just a fascinating work, and you will love it. I'm telling you, you really will. Truman, just an unsung presidential hero and so inspiring. He's just a really interesting figure who overcame a number of failures and in difficult circumstances. So I just find him to be just such a great story, especially for high school students. But if you're an adult, you're going to love this book too. I promise you, you will love it. Now, let's just say that, okay, Mrs. Guerra, I really don't want to read something nonfiction right now. Hey, that's okay, because boy, we've got some authors that can really tell a long tale in epic fashion, complete masterpieces. Let's go back to the French, shall we? Do you hear the people sing? I'm not going to break into song for y'all because I don't sing that well, but here we have Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. And I just heard on, I want to say, the New York Times Book Review podcast about a new book that came out discussing why this particular book is kind of the perfect novel that we all come back to. So I want to encourage you. It's even better than the musical. It's even better than any dramatized movie that you've seen of it. Oh my goodness, it's just that good. It is so good. So many Christ-like comparisons and just all sorts of social justice issues. It's just wonderful. You'll just keep reading and reading it. I'm telling you, you will. Okay, let's go over to the Russians, shall we? Forget the French for a minute. Let's talk about Leo Tolstoy. All right, how about this one? I love this one. Okay, this one is Anna Karenina. That's kind of the American pronunciation. I wish I spoke Russian, but I know that her name in Russian, at least her first name is Anna Karenina, I think is how you say it. This is another just sweeping spectacle of a book. Just so many great characters. And Tolstoy is just a phenomenal storyteller. And not only did he do it once, this big monstrous book, but if you don't want to do that, but hey, how about War and Peace? Everyone says that they've read it. Now you can. Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. Some people have called this the greatest novel of all time. the greatest novel of all time. Now, this is one that if you just read a little bit every day, you will accomplish it. And War and Peace, it's really set against the backdrop of war, but what he's really talking about as well is marriage. Oh, mind blown. You'll love it. War and Peace. But let's say you're like me and you like to laugh a lot, and every once in a while you just have to read a really funny book. Okay, I've got one for you. Let's go hop over to Spain. Boom. And let's go with Don Quixote. This book is hilarious. It is hilarious, and it is so foundational. So many different references about, fighting your windmills, things like that, that you will come to understand if you read Don Quixote. Again, it is a long, long book, but it is so funny. And if you do get a version of Don Quixote, I like to tell you, students, because this is one that was written quite a while back. If you look for something that has notes in the back, that will tend to help you understand a little bit more of what Miguel Cervantes is doing here. Now, okay, let's just say that none of those are striking your fancy and you're just not sure if you want to bite off more than you can chew, but you still would like to be able to say, hey, I read a lot. All right, I've got a suggestion for you. If you don't want to read a whole nonfiction work and you don't want to read a massive, epic, sweeping novel, how about the complete stories of one author? Oh yeah, I have to go there, kids. The complete Edgar Allan Poe. Yes, that's right. You can read everything that Edgar Allan Poe wrote. Look at that book. Just look at it. But the great thing about it is, Poe was a master of the short story, and one of his guiding principles was that a short story should be able to be read in one setting or in one sitting. You're going to sit down and you're going to read. So many of these short stories you can finish in less than an hour. Now, some of them are so good you're going to want to go back and read them again because some of them are rather deep. But this is another way that you could get through a substantial body of work, but it might not feel as tasking. So you might think about Edgar Allan Poe. I've got about 3 of these books. Now, we do have a class with the Excelsior classes that talks about, the works of Edgar Allan Poe. We read him in American literature, and we also have a course called American Gothics. But we don't cover everything. That's just how rich and how prolific a writer Edgar Allan Poe was. Some other authors that you might think about might be Eudora Welty. You could read all of the works of Eudora Welty. That would be a good one. I think Ambrose Bierce, there's some good collections of his short stories and works. The works of O. Henry might be another one. So that's just another way that you could kind of have this stretch reading goal, right? Something really long and lengthy. And I want to encourage you to do this for a number of reasons. And I think the most important reason for me is that it is going to stretch you in a different way than if you just sit down and read just a few short stories, or if you sit down and read a 250-page work. Reading something of this length and this scope and magnitude is going to tax you and stretch you in a good way. You're going to be developing more reading muscle. And the second reason that I want to bring up is kind of related to that, and that is once you've read a Truman, once you've read a War and Peace or a Don Quixote or all of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, you're not going to be afraid to read anything else. So when you go off to, tell my students, when you go off to university, whatever your professor gives you to read, no matter how long it is, you won't be fearful of it. You will be a fearless, courageous reader. And I know of no other way to do that than to give you something that's really going to make you work. And it is work to have to read this and to be disciplined to read it every day. Reading your Bible in a year, not going to be a problem after this. And that's another great book that I would encourage you to read in its entirety. And it's very doable. It is so doable. Well, I'm glad that you joined me for this edition or this installment of Books and Banter. We have some other ones coming up down the pipeline, and I hope that we'll see you then. Thank you.